Thank you for hosting us here in Brooklyn. It's great to see all of you here. Kimberly, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
You made the decision after leaving Princeton to go to Wall Street and, in fact, into the capital markets. Can you talk a little bit about that choice, why you made it, and how that helped to develop you and make you the person you are today?
I started off with everybody, my boss and the entire equity trading floor, trying to convince me that I should be in sales. They said, you've got a lot of people skills. Sales would be good for you. We see that as a great fit. I think this is going to be perfect. I kept saying, no, I think I want to be in trading. I'd see things like, well, trading's very analytical. I'm like, yes, that's why I want to be in trading. Well, so eventually I worked my way onto the trading desk and I had a phenomenal time. What I learned was that it was not so much about the computational components, which again, anybody can count in 16ths. It wasn't rocket science, but it was so much about just being observant, taking in information, being able to process information quickly and making good decisions. And I think that's something that lots of people can do, no matter what you look like or what kind of background you come from.
I think T. Rowe is widely known as a world-class asset management company, but you're also a world-class technology company. How do you think about the rate of change in technology? How do you think about adoption?
I heard this great statistic the other day. I was looking at enterprise adoption of AI tools, and only 10% of companies right now are actually using enterprise embedded tooling that has AI as part of it. But 70% of companies expect to have it next year. I don't know if that's every year we're gonna expect it to be next year, but that says the adoption curve is looking really, really fast. So we're doing some experimentation ourselves, and I feel like the beta version of tools for AI across enterprise aren't perfect yet, but I know people are waiting in the wings to start using them when they get there. So the opportunity is right. Asset management is so much around information, analysis, or research. Like, we have a world-class research platform, and as an active manager, that really does differentiate us and make us a premier shop. And research and information is a place that is ripe for us to focus our AI. Just the synthesis of sheer volumes. We have all of our research reports, plus all of the financial information that's publicly available, plus news feeds and other data sources, all being entered into a platform for generative AI that allows our research analysts to ask simple questions and get back answers, which would have taken weeks of research in their previous regimes. And so I think there's a huge productivity lift. But when you think about people not having to go through and assemble information and synthesize it all to summarize it, but having that at your fingertips, the question becomes, what else does it unlock in terms of their ability to understand that information and apply it in different ways? And so I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Can you talk a little bit about your leadership philosophy and how do you cultivate inclusion and really attracting and keep top talent?
I think that's maybe the most important thing in leadership and in business in general. Like, anything worth doing is going to be hard, and anything hard means you can't do it by yourself. If you can't do it by yourself, that means you'd better build a great team. I think the biggest thing that I learned about teams at Fannie Mae was really around psychological safety. I realized that in risk, you absolutely must have people willing to tell you the hard truths. If people have ideas or worries or concerns and they get unaddressed, they turn into bigger worries and concerns and problems. So getting people to just speak up was the hardest thing. Now, I think BCG's done some studies on psychological safety too, haven't they?
We have. We've done a lot of work over the years, but actually most recently, our Chief Diversity Officer, Nadia Youssef, did a big study, and she looked at 24,000 employees across 16 countries, okay? So very, very diverse population. And to my mind, not surprisingly, she found that actually companies that really quantifiably protected psychological safety retained top talent, and that was particularly true of diverse top talent. So it's proven out in the research, and something that's so important in terms of BCG and the work that we do. How do you, in your organization, create an environment where you don't suffer from change fatigue?
I think coming out of the pandemic, people were generally at the end of their ropes, right? Like it was just a time period where there was so much uncertainty. Things felt a little bit unsafe. Routines were completely obliterated. And for a lot of people, just the basic safety net that they have of people that they can count on and places that are going to be open and available just wasn't there. So I heard a lot of like, that's too much. We're not changing. That's enough. It's too fast. We just need to slow it down. And I think a lot of companies went through that where employees just said, it's too much to process. But one thing we know is like change isn't waiting for us to slow down and get with it. Like it's happening all the time, every day.
Yeah.
And so the real trick, I think, as a leader is getting your team not to see change as something else that they have to manage and process and a burden, but something that they can tap into and keep evolving and growing and thriving, right? If you're just trying to survive, change feels like it's a threat. But if your team's working on thriving, change feels like an opportunity.
Can you talk to the group about how you balance strategy versus execution, and how do you make sure it all comes together?
It's a little tactical, but I do think it's important for everybody on your team to understand what the strategy is and to know what it's going to take to actually achieve it. I think it's really interesting, though, when you're setting your strategy to think about how will we execute on it. I once heard this great saying that's like, no strategy ever got better through execution. And it's absolutely true that things can only go down from where your imagination takes you. And so I think getting that execution right as part of your strategic formulation is really, really key. And the best strategies, in my view, are ones that aren't easily imitated. You need to have something that is somewhat unique that you're anchoring on, and that right to win for your strategy to be both effective and to give you some competitive advantage.
A strategy to be effective has to be doable and absorbable by the organization. And so I think as you think about the strategy and what that competitive advantage is, having a clear view as to how you operationalize it, how you embed it, is critical. And one of the things that we're seeing is we're working with a lot of companies on AI. There's a part which is around what's the right concept and what will create strategic advantage and what will be defensible if we're going to make this big investment. So that's a really important question. But then the other important question is, then how do I change? How do I change what my people do? How do I change my process? How do I embed this in the organization? And I think it's something that I think all of our clients are working on. I don't think any of them have achieved like the North Star yet, but something where they have to continue to improve.